It's been a long time since LEGO made a Y-Wing. That's why I decided to make one as an alternate build using existing LEGO Star Wars sets. But I got a little carried away and instead of one, I made 5. And since this vehicle is so loved by LEGO Star Wars fans, I'm going to be releasing free PDF instructions for one of these Y-Wings. All I ask is that you like this video and vote in the comments for your favorite Y-Wing, and I'll make instructions for the winner. Up first is this Y-Wing made from one copy of the 2020 501st set, the OG. This is the smallest of the Y-Wings, coming in just a bit bigger than a Y-Wing microfighter would be. The blasters at the front are a little oversized and the cockpit is as well in order to fit one minifigure inside. There's a rotating turret on the back as well as 2 bombs that can be attached or dropped with these clip pieces. Now the sides and engines are sort of cobbled together, but they still achieve the general shape of the Y-Wing. And finally, there is a side build, which is kind of a droid communications outpost. You can swoop down with a Y-Wing and take it out. Here's what I like about this alternate build. The price is low, there's almost no leftover parts, and there's some nice play features for the size. And here's what I don't like. The scale and the proportions are just off, and it's got that real cobbled together look to it. Up next is actually a big jump in price as it uses 4 sets, with 2 332nd battle packs and 2 501st battle packs from 2023. I made this Y-Wing. That's a total of about $80 for a pretty small ship, although you would get a ton of minifigures. And while these sets tend to have smaller parts, they were detailed and varied enough for me to make a pretty clean looking Y-Wing. The front blasters are much smaller compared to my first 501st Y-Wing, which is good, but the cockpit still looks a little funky due to having to accommodate a minifigure. I think this is what they call chibi scale. Anyways, the rear turret is pretty lackluster, but the sides and engines are really well done and smoothed off, at least on the top side. Finally, I added a bomb dropping feature on here as well. Simply lift this clip and angle the ship backwards in order for these to slide off. I think that works better than the feature on my first 501st Y-Wing. I did try and make a side build, some kind of ion cannon or something, but yeah, no, it wasn't happening. Here's what I like about this alternate build. It's got a mostly clean look. The bomb dropping feature is improved from the first one, and I used most of the parts. And here's what I don't like. The price is pretty steep for a small ship like this, and it's pretty fragile, which honestly should not be a surprise at this point. Alright, so the third alternate build I'll be showing you is the most recent. In January 2024, the Clones and Droids Battle Pack was released, and I took 2 of them and made, you guessed it, another Y-Wing. This one actually reminds me more of a Rebellion Y-Wing compared to the Clone Wars version, with its missing panels and scraped together look. Of course, that's just because of the unique parts selection in the Clones and Droids Battle Pack. I used a lot of bars and clips in this build, like at the front to make the windscreen. Of course, the bars make great blasters for the rear as well. Now the sides and engines are really cobbled together again, but unlike the first Y-Wing, this one is pretty proportionate with itself. It just has more character to it, I feel like. And it's all rounded off with a play feature, 4 downward pointing flick fire missiles on the back that you can unclip and drop. Here's what I like about this alternate build. It uses some really clever building techniques, and it's got that unique look that's paying homage to the Rebellion Y-Wing. So cool. And here's what I don't like. Again, it's pretty fragile, and also again, it's still got that somewhat cobbled together look. Number 4 on the list is made up of 4 sets, 4 of the original 501st sets to be exact. I designed this alternate build a very long time ago, and it's probably the biggest of all these Y-Wing builds that I'm showing you today. I think the front section is pretty accurate to the actual Y-Wing, at least more so than the other ones. The cockpit can open up and the pilot has his head fit into this small windowed area. But towards the rear of the ship is where the accuracy kind of starts to fall off. Unlike the others, this Y-Wing does feature a rear seat for an additional minifigure, but unfortunately it's not a bubble canopy like you would expect to find. It still has a nice little area for one minifigure with a rounded exterior and a nicely sized blaster turret. Now as far as the engines, with a lack of rounded and angled parts in this set, I had to rely on brick-built sections to fill out the proper length of the ship. This leads to a somewhat blocky look to it, although the overall shape is still there. There's some bombs, quote unquote, on the underside, which are just studded in and can't really be dropped, at least not in a fun way like the others. And finally, I had quite a few leftover parts which I tried to turn into something, but ultimately was lost to the bin, RIP. Here's what I like about this alternate build. It's got room for 2 minifigures, it's a pretty good size, and the front half is pretty accurate to the actual Y-Wing ship, at least more so than the others. And here's what I don't like. It's gonna be pretty expensive with a lot of leftover parts, around $120 if you would have bought the 4 sets to make this back when they were available. And last but not least, here we have my favorite Y-Wing alternate build, which is made from 2 of the Republic fighter tank set. I was actually kind of bummed out I didn't think to try this sooner because wow, it turned out so good. From the front blasters to the nose, you have a gradual slope leading up to the real standout piece here, the windscreen. This is the only one out of the 5 Y-Wing alternate builds to use an actual windscreen piece. Of course, the one that's included in the set is just plain white, but if you have the most recent X-Wing set, you can borrow the windscreen from that set to bring this to a whole new level. But regardless of the windscreen, you can still fit 2 minifigures inside, a pilot and a rear-facing gunner. And of course, the rear gunner would have control of the blaster turret, which is just up top. It has full 360-degree rotation, and the ring of white tiles around it really seals the deal. Now, making the transition from the midsection are some well-placed large slopes. This set has quite a few angled parts, and I took full advantage of them. The sides and engines are near perfect length, super smooth, and clean enough you could eat off of them. This ship is also the only one to not feature blue, and the highlights of red throughout the ship really give it that classic Republic look. And while this ship does not have any bomb dropping features like the other ones, it does have a pretty decent side build that I made from the remaining parts. It's a command tower that features 2 turrets, blaster storage, and a control panel for supporting the ship on its missions. I know it's not the most exciting build, but it used up nearly all the remaining parts, which is always a good feeling. Here's what I like about this alternate build. The ship is ultra sleek and smooth. It's got room for 2 minifigures, it's got a pretty substantial side build that uses most of the leftover parts, and it is actually really sturdy. And here's what I don't like. It's a bit lacking in play features, and I wish it actually came with this clear windscreen piece because it just looks so much better. But still, this one is my favorite out of the bunch for sure, and that's my collection of my 5 Y-Wing alternate builds. Each one is unique in their own way, which is kind of the beauty of making alternate builds. Let me know down in the pinned comment which is your favorite, and I'll make free PDF instructions for the winner like I said earlier. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.